potentially an American warship has been hit by the Houthis. This is some information that's coming out today. We're going to be talking all about it, going over the live map and trying to trace where this information is coming from and having a good old chat about what's going on with the Houthis, with Iran and America ramping up all of their bombers over in that area. It's going to be an interesting day of talk when it comes to this news. I put out some videos last week about this situation and people seem to really like my dialogue about it. So we're going to be talking more about it this week and kind of seeing what's going on and where this is going to go and what we think is going to happen with the tensions between the US, the Houthis, and ultimately the US and Iran. And is it going to kick off with another war? But before we get started, check out what the Kickstarter ended up at. It ended yesterday, the Kickstarter. The goal was £15,000 and we raised £18,009 for this new business, Morale. The idea of Morale is to, just like other energizing drinks like Red Bull and Monster and stuff like that, is to take the profits of their drink and sponsor extreme sports. We're taking that business model and applying it to the outdoors, taking the profits of this drink and getting people outside more, whether it's adults with bushcraft and foraging, or whether that's kids, getting the next generation of kids outside into forest schools. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about outside of YouTube. This is completely separate to YouTube, but we've done really well. So thank you to everyone who has participated in the journey. I really appreciate it. If you want to follow along with the journey, all the socials for Morale are linked down below. Also, if you want something, if you backed Morale and you want something to drink it out of, check out this incredible bit of kit right here. This is Chug, the best drinking vessel in the world. If you want to keep your beer or can of Morale cold for a long time, this is what you want. These things are phenomenal, handmade here in Britain by a small business, sustainably made. Free customization. I made them do the Morale logo. They kindly did it for me. And you get a free bag. 10% off, link down below. You are not going to get a better deal anywhere else, I promise you. Okay, let's get into this. Let's pull this up because I was looking through this earlier today to see if there's any news that's changed. Unfortunately, the news is above my head here, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. Look at all these tabs I've got open at the top here because I've been tracking a lot of this information. So let's go over what it's saying over the past couple days, but we're gonna specifically be looking at one thing, and that one thing is about this American warship being hit by the Houthis. Okay, we don't need to worry about that one. Iranian officials have said that the armed forces have been put on high alert. Makes sense. America's ramping up stuff over there. It makes sense that they're going to do it as well. Where is it? There's one that I really wanted to talk about. A Houthi spokesperson says the Iran-backed group launched multiple cruise missiles and drones at an American warship, including the USS Harry Truman aircraft carrier in the northern Red Sea, adding that one of Truman's support vessels was hit. This is massive right here. Right here. It came out right here. Now, I looked at this and I thought, all right, I'd really like to trace the source of it. So it came to this this post right here on X by the Iran International English, which seems to be some sort of media outlet, okay? And it says, a Houthi spokesman, basically what I just said, right? It's copy and paste of exactly what I just said, that an American warship was hit. Basically, it looks like they were going after the USS Harry Truman, but they hit one of its support vessels. For those of you who don't know, an aircraft carrier doesn't go and do anything alone. It's supported by numerous different vessels because it is basically a floating city. Even though there's a lot of protection on there, they just need that little added bit of support, don't they? So I thought that was weird. So I dug into this, found their news station, and then found their website. Now, this is an Iran-based news outlet, and they've got a whole live mega thread about tensions between the US and Iran and how there's the talks are not going on yet. They are covering this like it's the most important thing in the world. To America, it's just one of many things, unfortunately. But it does seem to be incredibly important to them. And rightly so, because if America does kick off with Iran, then Iran's going to be in big trouble. But this particular bit of information then caught my attention again because this YouTube channel right here, Navy Media, which is a relatively decent channel, also did a whole video, 14 minutes long, talking about this exact situation. We can watch a few little bits right here.
They thought they were hitting a helpless cargo ship, but this time it was a U.S. Navy destroyer.
So they're saying they actually went after what they thought was a cargo ship, but it was actually a destroyer. Now, this is a little bit different to the news of them trying to attack the USS Harry Truman and then ultimately hitting one of its support vessels. It's a little bit different than that. And so, again, I like this video and I like their stuff, but they don't necessarily cite the sources. And when it comes to me talking about this information, I really want to find out where this information is coming from. So I'm going to pause it there because that's the bit of information I wanted to get from it. And I can talk more about that in a minute. We'll go back to the video in a minute. But I traced that information to this fellow right here, Jim Bennett. He says in April 2025, so this month, bearing in mind it's the 7th today, the Red Sea turned into a war zone again. The Houthi rebels launched a drone and missile attack thinking they were targeting a defenseless cargo ship, but they picked the wrong ship. It was a fully armed US Navy destroyer equipped with the Aegis combat system, SM-2 missiles, and Phalanx CIWS. Within seconds, the attack was neutralized. What followed? A powerful retaliation strike that shook the region. You attack US Navy destroyers. You are not alive long enough to tell the story. So I don't know whether these are two different stories. The fact that, you know, this ultimately ended in the warship not being attacked, right? And they retaliated. Whereas this one by the Iranian news outlet says one of the Truman support vessels was hit. I think this is super interesting. We live in a day and age where you can get information from all over the place. And not everyone necessarily supports or cites their sources, right? We've got these people saying that there was a vessel that was hit. And we've got this Jim Bennett, which from what I've seen through looking through his social media, he seems to be a veteran of the US forces, but he seems to have some inside information somewhere. But what we've got two completely different stories here. One that was hit, and one that wasn't hit, but they retaliated. So whether this is two completely separate stories that so happen to have happened at the same time, or it's two different versions, one coming from Iran saying that they were successfully hit, and one coming from America saying, hey, no, they tried, they didn't succeed, and we retaliated. Now, in my opinion, looking over all of this, if it's true that it was hit, it would be all over American news, because I think it's in America's interest to get the public behind the cause, right? If a US vessel was hit, it would be all over the American news. And as of right now, as of recording this, I've not seen it on American news. I've not seen it anywhere, okay? The only bit of information I could get was from this fella here. And again, he doesn't really cite the source either. He doesn't really cite it. And so it's hard to kind of figure out what's going on here. You know, it's not very big, this bit of information. Like, it's not got much love. He doesn't have a ton of followers. He's got like 5,000 followers and followers and following. So who knows where he's getting this information from? But it does seem quite prevalent. And again, this came from yesterday, April 6th, whereas this Iran one came from April 5th. So it could be two separate incidents, but I don't think it is. However, let's watch this one because this seems to be aligning with Jim Bennett and what he's saying.
And the Houthis made a serious mistake. In early April 2025, after another wave of Houthi drone strikes in the Red Sea, the US Navy was no longer playing defense. In the middle of the Red Sea, a swarm of incoming drones lit up the radar screens like fireworks on the 4th of July. The Houthi rebels had struck again, part of a string of attacks that's been growing bolder by the week.
Okay, I have heard as well that the Houthis are trying to, well, they're not trying to, but I've heard that it's de-escalating a little bit, and it's mostly because the US has ramped up an ungodly amount of kit out there. We've seen all the B-2 bombers, right? We've seen the photo of them being stored on the island about 2,000 miles away. We know that the US is ramping up stuff there. And it's not so much that the Houthis are slowing things down. It's more that they're like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And it's almost as if they're in a bit of a lull at the moment to try and figure out what's going on.
But on this particular day, they picked the wrong target. The destroyer they locked onto wasn't just any ship. It was equipped with the kind of tech that doesn't just defend, it fights back. Within seconds, alarms blared, defensive systems kicked in.
So I really like these types of channels because what they're trying to do is they're basically they've got this information right here. they've got this information right here, and they've turned around and they've made it into a story, which I think is kind of a beautiful thing to do in a way, because what it does is it humanizes what's happened. It humanizes it and says, look, instead of just being like the Houthis launched a drone attack and ultimately the US took it away and retaliated. Instead of just saying that, it kind of takes a bit of humanity out of it. And I get it. This Jim guy's just giving out information, right, as far as I'm aware. But this other YouTube channel, they're legitimately like trying to tell the story, explain why and what's happened and how they go about it and what was probably going on in the ship and how things were played out.
The Houthi assault got turned into scrap metal before it even reached striking distance. And that was just the beginning. Because what came next? It was the kind of response that made the whole region take a step back. What actually happens when a rebel group attacks a U.S. warship by mistake? The Red Sea isn't just a trade route anymore, it's a war zone. Since late 2023, the Houthi rebels in Yemen have launched wave after wave of drone and missile attacks on ships passing through these waters.
I also want to preference that they're saying that this, in particular, is mostly because of the Houthis and the US, but in fact, it's Iran and the US, because we know that the Houthis are being supported by Iran. Now, let me just do a quick Google search. Let me find a generic US news outlet. NBC. In fact, let's go a little bit either side. Let's get CNN and let's get Fox News, because then we've got both sides of it, so that we can basically, what I'm trying to do is take out any bias here and show that if a US ship was attacked, it would be all over at least one of the sides of the agenda in America, right? So Fox News here, I'm not seeing anything about a US ship being attacked. And when I say attacked, I mean hit. Like a US ship being hit, all right? Nothing about the Houthis. And it would be, I swear to God, if a US ship was hit, it would be all over the news. Let's go to terrorism, maybe. Nothing there. Hamas. Airstrike on Houthis. So there we go. I mean, that may be 2 days ago. Trump touts airstrike on Houthis showing video. We will never sink our ships again. Yeah, this was a bit of footage that was shared about the Houthis actually getting hit. Right here. This was apparently this video here. I'm not going to show the video. In fact, yeah, you can watch the video. Apparently, this was some sort of training camp for the Houthis. Or was a training camp. So again, that's not a US ship being hit. I swear, if a US ship was hit, it would be all over the news. And now, if I'm thinking about it, it would most likely be all over more of a right-leaning news, because they would want the US to rally together against these people. Whereas when it comes to political leaning, I think CNN's probably not going to show this type of stuff. It would be more of a Fox News type of story. And again, I'm seeing nothing. Let me try and go to world, maybe. Palestine, Israel, again, Canada, Russia. Nothing about the Houthis right here. And again, let's go to Middle East here. Let's get it even more refined. The US moves the B-2 bombers. We've seen this picture before. I literally just spoke about it. That's on here. That's on here. And so, through seeing this, Israel strikes Hezbollah. Yeah. Through seeing the fact that it's not all over US news, it makes me really doubt this news outlet here, this Iranian International English, right? It says the world's leading news outlet on Iran, fearless journalism and first-hand reports for accurate, in-depth coverage. It says they're based in London, but their news, like if a support vessel was hit, that would be breaking news. Breaking news. And a lot of people would agree with that. And so I'm starting to believe that what this fella's saying here and what this video is showing here is most likely true. The Houthis tried to attack what they thought was a shipping vessel. Ultimately, it wasn't. It was an American vessel. The Americans dealt with it. Not a big deal. And then retaliated. I'm more leaning, if it was one of the two stories, that this is true right here.
They claim it's about supporting Palestine, but their targets have ranged from commercial cargo carriers to U.S. Navy destroyers. In their minds, anyone linked to the West is fair game.
Yeah.
But their tactics? Sloppy, unpredictable anti-ship cruise missiles.
I mean, they're beating around the bush here a little bit, aren't they? Let's be honest.
Aegis combat system, standard missiles, SM-2 and SM-6.
Again, they're talking about the missiles on the ship, which is cool, but we'll cover that in another video.
One by one, the sky lit up as missiles and drones exploded mid-air.
We know the story. This has happened before. This has happened. We've watched videos on this exact scenario previously. We have drones and missiles going towards US equipment, whether that be ships or recently an aircraft, right? We've seen that they tried to attack an aircraft. Ultimately, it's unsuccessful, and the US retaliates, right? Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. This is not anything that's a surprise. The big surprise would be if a ship really was hit. If a ship was actually hit in the US. Now, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I would love to know what you think. Do you think that a ship was hit? Do you think that that's a non-news? Do you think that's fake news? Do you think that's just to try and get people rallied up? Do you think that that actually happened and the US doesn't want to talk about it? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. We're going to start making these videos where we're talking more about current affairs in places like this, in places like Ukraine and Russia. I think it's really important that we start these discussions. We start calling out different news outlets if it's not true. I don't know whether this is true or not. It could be true, right? I'm not seeing any sources. I'm not seeing where they're getting this information from, right? In fact, to prove that point even more, when you go to their website, this Iran, the best news on Iran, I'm seeing nothing. I'm seeing absolutely nothing about it. There's a picture of an aircraft carrier here, but this is that same live feed that I was just looking at. The same one. And again, it mentions nothing on here. So either this is just one random tweet that they put out, right? April 5th. Or it's a big news. But if a US ship was, it would be front page of their outlet at least. Like, I'm on the front page news of their website, and it's not there saying that a US ship was hit. It's not there. And so, in my opinion, if a US ship was hit, that would be breaking news. Breaking news. Love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think it's going to get worse out there? Do you think it's going to de-escalate now that we've got an ungodly amount of B-2 bombers just kind of waiting in silence for something to happen? Do you think it's going to calm down? Do you think it's going to get worse? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I don't ask that, but we're going to be making these fun videos. Fun, interesting videos, I would say. They're not very fun talking about this type of stuff, is it? It's more heartbreaking in a way and frustrating. The fact that Iran is still kind of prodding the fire. One day they're going to get burnt. That's the truth of it. And they could be like, look, we're not supporting the Houthis, but come on. Even my 6-year-old son knows they are. Do you know what I mean? Anyways, check out the socials for Morale if you haven't already. Get yourself a chug so you can sit down, watch these videos, and relax. 10% off. Link down below. And until next time, I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.